Hello, friends, and welcome to episode number 86 of Nostalgia Talk. I'm James, and joining me this time around is, it's funny, my first name is James, and here I am talking to Kenny James.
Greetings.
It's funny. I've had guests with the first name James before, like I had Jim Benton, who's a book author. I had James Preller, another book author. And a couple weeks ago, I had James Godwin, who's a puppeteer, on the show. So this is the first time I've interviewed somebody with the last name James.
Yeah, I mean, I've spent my whole life, with three first names, you know. So when I was in the Navy, people just assume that, oh, if your name is Kenneth, that you go by Ken.
Mm-hmm.
Hate that.
Mm,
Absolutely hate it.
yeah.
Uh,
And of course, Ken is the derogatory nickname that we give to horrible men. So,
right? Yeah, it was fine. I mean, I was like, at the time, I didn't like Kenny either.
mm,
So my first wife started calling me Kenny, and I kind of accepted it. And then when I started being in bands, I was like a singer in, rock bands and stuff. And I was all like, wow, Kenny James is a pretty cool, stage name. So
sounds kind of like Kenny G, the clarinetist.
yeah, I've actually had coworkers that's all they called me, Kenny G. I'd be all like, all right.
But yet your name is technically Kenny J.
Yeah. So
Now, for anybody who doesn't know, Kenny is a voice actor who is best well known, of course, as the voice of Bowser in Mario. And I know that none of the listeners can see it, but he's showing me Bowser right there. Hi, Bowser.
well, if they have video,
Mhm.
actually, I don't know if you even do video on your thing, so.
No, everything's all just
Oh,
photographs.
okay. Well, I was holding up a 6-inch Bowser into the camera. So there you
Mhm.
go.
Mhm. And he has also done Bowser's counterparts, such as Dry Bowser, Meowser. Basically, anytime Bowser is shown like with a different power up, still the same guy. It's just a
Yeah.
lot powerful of a voice. And he's also done a lot of voices for anime. So, Kenny, welcome to Nostalgia Talk.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I'm all like going, wow, Nova Scotia, cool. It's like this is my first podcast, probably out of the country,
Oh
out of
wow.
the US.
Oh
So
wow.
yeah. So that's cool. I've done lots of US podcasts, but
Well, I'm pleased and honored to be the first.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, cool, cool.
Mhm. So earlier you were talking about being in the military and being in bands, and of course, the reason that everybody is here is because they know you best as a voice actor. What did
Sure.
you aspire to want to become? Like, what were your big goals?
You know, uh, I wanted to get out of the middle of nowhere. You mentioned the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, I live literally in the middle of nowhere.
I got you beat probably. Uh, Deep East Texas. Um, the school that I went to from fourth grade until I graduated high school, the town's population was about 180,
Hmm.
not 180,000, 180.
That's talk about living in a small town. Wow.
We didn't even live in town. We lived between towns. It was like 13 miles to school, and the town on the other side of that highway was about 10 miles away. So I lived in the middle of nowhere, but which wasn't a bad existence as a kid. You had a creek and it was woods and
That's one of the nice things about living in a small town. It gives you more time to appreciate all the small things.
yeah, I mean, we used to dam the creek and make a freak little swimming hole out of it and stuff. It was fun. We ran around, got bug bites, and luckily no snake bites because almost everything that slithers in deep East Texas is venomous. So never got bitten. I took a few of them out, but
Ooh.
they never got me. So
Wow, so you really are like Bowser in the fact that you're very powerful when it comes to
yeah,
enemies.
yeah. I don't care for vipers or all that stuff. So yuck.
Mhm.
Where were we?
Uh, what were your like
Oh
aspirations?
yeah. I went in the Navy. That's what it was. That's what got me going on that. I joined the Navy delayed entry program. I think it was 7 months before my graduation. And because I was just like, I gotta go do something else. So 12 days after I graduated high school, I was in boot camp. And I thought that I would do that probably career, but I wound up doing 6 years active and then I got out, which
Hmm.
was dumb because I made E6, which in the US Navy, I mean, that's getting up there ways enlisted wise. It only goes to E9. Had I stayed in, I would have easily, I would have easily retired a Master Chief. But I got out at 6 years, my own fault. But that was my thing at the time when I was young. I was like, that's what I'm gonna do. Um, and then after I got out of the Navy, I worked for contractors for 2 or 3 years, government contractors. And then like the bottom fell out.
Hmm.
I had every crappy job imaginable. I was mowing grass. I was installing, insulation in houses and stuff. And it was like, that's terrible. I don't recommend that to anybody. It's bad. Uh, yeah, I did all sorts of stuff, man. And then eventually I just bullheadedly was like, all right, I'm gonna start doing theater and I'm gonna start trying to do voice work because I want to, you know.
So were you at all interested in like screen acting?
Not so much at first.
Okay.
Uh, I figured I had always had this thing, this range that I have, which I discovered when I started singing. My first wife, I got to give her credit for that. One time, well, I had this set of drums, which she did not care for, as you can well imagine. Uh, but one time we were getting ready to go somewhere, and I had a CD in, I think it was the outfield, and I was singing with it. And she goes, you sing better than you play drums. And I
I'm
went,
not sure whether or not that's a compliment or a roast.
well, I just kind of went, like, oh, okay. So then instead of looking for a band that needed a crappy drummer, I was all like, I'm just going to see if I can find a band that needs a singer. So I did, and I did band after band after band and, got close to getting an album like actually shopped and produced, but that fell apart. So we wound up with what we call a 12-song souvenir, which is still good. It just never was mastered. It never got finished.
Mhm.
Um, the songs were good though. Those were originals. But at the same time, I started doing theater. I had gone and seen a couple of theater productions, like, professional theater, and I was like, I could do this. Musicals especially. Because my ability to sing, I was like, I could do this. Um, but I mean, overall, I didn't even start acting until I was 40.
Mhm.
So it's not too late,
It's never too late at
No,
all. Yeah.
it's not. It's very strange when I look back at it now and go, wow, I didn't start auditioning for things until I was 40 years old. Aside from, doing bands. So I wasn't a scared of going into a studio because I had done it, but I had never done voice acting in a studio. So when I got the audition for this part, uh, I had no idea what I was doing.
So what
So
was that first gig? Like, do you remember the first voice performance that you ever did professionally?
I well, you can professionally means you're getting paid, right? So
I mean, that's one way to put it,
right?
sure.
Sure, 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 sure. So
Like
I
when
was
your career kind
actually
of kind of took off, let's
I
say.
I built this goofy little website back in 2000, 2001, somewhere around there. I actually used a Napster copy of Coffee Cup 9 website builder thing. You still had to use some HTML, and actually do some typing to make things work, And I built this website and I thought, okay, cool. I need to put something on there though that people can listen to. And I wound up taking a voiceover class in Seattle, Washington at the University of Washington. They had this experimental campus and it was for commercials more than anything else, but I did really good, really well, I should say. Uh, and the teacher of that class was pretty prolific in commercial work, but he also did demos. So I had him produce a demo for me. And by today's standards, it was very long and very convoluted. It had straight work in it and character stuff, and it was like 3.5 minutes long, which not by today. No, you don't do that.
Hmm. Yeah,
You
I put my name into audition for a series a while back, and they said, if you're called back for it, just put together a tape 1 minute of what you can do. Like that's what they ask you for
Yeah,
now these days.
generally, yeah, it's about 60 seconds.
Hmm.
And so people have multiple demos now. You'll have a commercial demo and you'll have a character demo or animation demo or whatever. But yeah, I mean, if I did not have that demo in hand, I probably would not be sitting here talking to you guys. It was like um I was working my regular job. I used to it's funny. I used to sell propane and propane accessories, I'll tell you what. I actually did. I worked for Suburban Propane for 13 years. I was a service tech. And I was just doing my job, and customer lady heard me talking to my service manager about I had been doing these jobs for a guy in Canada. Don't remember where, somewhere in Canada, and he was paying me like $8 or $9 per line to do these character voices for, I think it was answering machine things. Of all nowadays, people are like, what's an answering machine? But and
Yeah, it's so funny. I was watching Jimmy Kimmel, and he was talking about the fact that the phone book is now totally obsolete.
oh yeah, it's like, why did they used to print these things? Well, because we didn't have the internet, and I mean, a phone book for an urban area could be several volumes of the huge phone books to where you had to look things up. But anyway, so I was doing Scooby and Shaggy and, like New York Guy or whatever for this good. And I was talking about it, and this woman goes, "Oh, you do voice work?" And I said, "I'm trying to get my foot in the door somewhere." And she goes, "Well, I'm a part-time producer at Bad Animals in Seattle." And I had heard of the studio. Ann and Nancy Wilson from Heart actually built that studio, and then they sold it. But anyway, it's where Nintendo of America does the majority of their recording.
Oh, that's
Uh,
interesting.
I mean, there's a lot of other stuff going on there too, but so she listened to my demo because I had one, and she sent it over to the production manager, and they started sending me auditions. And when they just happened to be recasting Bowser, I got an audition request and I sent it in, and 19 years later, I'm still here. So in a very long, convoluted sort of way, that's how that happened.
That was actually going to be my next question, how you became the voice of Bowser.
Yeah, that's how it happened.
Mhm.
Um, my audition for that, they sent me Scott Burns, um, his audio tracks from Super Mario Sunshine and the script, and that was my audition lines. So I thought that they were going to continue along that line of Bowser talking and all that stuff. And
Hmm.
so I did my best Scott Burns impersonation. I was like, Mario, how dare you disrupt my family vacation? Yeah, and I apparently nailed it because a couple weeks later, I got an email that said you got the job, and I was like, "What job? What are you talking about?" Um, then when I went in to record the first time, basically were like, "Yeah, you're not going to be talking."
I was I
So
was I was wondering that myself actually, because Bowser's communication these days is all growls. Usually there's
yeah,
subtitles on the screen. I think the
sure.
first time I ever heard Bowser speak would have been in the 1980s Mario cartoon
Oh
where
wow.
where he was King Koopa
That
at the
was a
time.
yeah, that was a guy named Harvey Adkins.
A fellow Canadian who passed
Yeah,
away not too long ago,
yeah.
actually. Yeah,
He's been dead for a few years, but
yeah.
um
I saw him in a lot of stuff from my childhood. I
oh
really
sure,
liked him.
yeah. He was a fairly prolific, cartoon, animation actor guy and
Yeah,
stuff.
he was one of those guys that had a really calm sounding like regular voice.
Yeah.
And then he does King Koopa.
Yeah. And I do remember seeing him on TV probably more than once,
Okay,
like live action, if I remember right. So
could be.
yeah, so I was like, okay, what am I gonna do then if they don't want me to talk? Um, so what I did was I started to morph into what I've become now. Instead of sounding so, kind of humanistic, kind of, brr, I got into this thing I'm able to do where it's, I don't know how it works. I just know that it works. And I'm 60 years old now, and it still works. So as long as they keep using me, I'm gonna keep growling. So, and as far as the speaking goes, we actually kind of refer to it as Bowserese.
I'm gonna use that now.
Yeah, I mean, nobody else can see this, but you can. But I mean, it's like, it's just gibberish,
Mhm.
and then they put the speech bubble, and there you go. Bowser's talking.
It's funny
Uh,
because my last guest was Nikki Smedley, who was in Teletubbies as
yeah.
Lala,
Oh
and
God.
and when I got the confirmation from her, my sister and her girlfriend were here. They're here now, actually, and my sister's girlfriend is a huge Mario fan,
Oh, cool.
like massive Mario fan. We game together a lot, and I remember I got the email from Nikki, and I said to my sister and her girlfriend, "We got another one," which is usually how I always celebrate how when I get a guest. I was like, "We got another one," and
This guy
um,
actually answered my email.
basically, yeah. And my sister's like, "Well, what does Lala say?" Lala was her character in Teletubbies, and I'm like, "He says, hello,"
Yeah,
which is just gibberish and baby talk. And I said that to Nikki, and she's like, "Yeah." And he also says "bibbly cheese," and I was like, "What the hell is that?" She's like, "It's my little expletive I made for Lala."
ah, see, that's behind the scenes stuff. It's
Mm-hmm.
all, yeah, it's a wordy dird that's not a wordy dird.
True that.
So, uh, how I was at a Comic-Con thing here a couple weeks ago, and I met the actress that does Mum Chili in Bluey. And Bluey I had never paid any attention to it because I'm not a kid. And my kids are all grown, and they're out of the house and all that stuff. But people kept talking about Bluey because the actors were there at the show.
Mm-hmm.
And I was all like, what? And they were like, dude, they go, it appeals to adults as much as anything,
Mm-hmm.
as it does to kids. And I was like, hey, Sunday morning, I get up, I'm getting ready to go to the show. I pack up my luggage and stuff, and I turn on the TV in the hotel room, and I'm flipping through channels, and I go, "Oh, Disney Junior, Bluey's on." I go, "All right, I'm gonna give this a shot, see what it looks like." I didn't want to leave my room.
Wow.
I just wanted to keep watching it. It is so entertaining. It's Australian.
That's
Um,
right.
and it's a really, really good show. It teaches so many really good lessons, really wholesome, you know. Um, but it teaches lessons for parents and children, you know. Teaches children it's all like, yeah, you should be nice about this and do that and stuff. But it centers on parents sometimes about their parenting skills, but in such a cartoonish way that you don't even realize you're being taught, you know.
Mm.
So
It's interesting that you say that because like I've talked to a lot of people who have written for Sesame Street as well.
right. Yeah.
And one of the most recent guests I've had on was one of the writers whose name is Belinda Ward. And we were kind of talking about some of the things that she had written that, of course, is very typical of how a child would react to something. But there was
Yeah.
one episode I brought up. I was like, okay, this was probably most definitely for the parents as well. And that's something that another writer whose name is Norman Stiles. Norman wrote the episode where Big Bird was told by the adults that Mr. Hooper had died. And
Oh
Norman
yeah.
And Norman told me that they aired that show on Thanksgiving because they knew that there were going to be a lot of adults in the house that probably wanted to watch Sesame Street with their kids. And now they have a reason to, like it's an explanation of what they're talking about is serious, but that's what happened to grandma.
That actually took some really good writing skill to do that episode when you think about it, because
Yeah.
it's a touchy thing, you know. I
Yeah.
mean, little kids, they were like, "What do you mean, Mr. Hooper's dead? What?
Hmm.
What? Huh?"
What does dead mean? Yeah.
Well, and I mean, I'm old enough that I remember when I was in first grade, year one, whatever you guys call it. I uh, I remember our teacher telling us that today there's a brand new show starting, and it's on Channel 9, which in the US anyway, Channel 9 is typically PBS.
Mhm.
And they were like, go home and tell your parents or whoever that you want to watch this. It's really important, you know. And it was Sesame Street. And I saw the very first episode of Sesame Street the day that it premiered.
Wow.
And I remember it. I remember going, telling my grandmother, I was like, you gotta put the TV on. You know, it was 1969, you know. Um,
Still going strong all these years.
it's bizarre. But it has a purpose, you know, and as long as it continues to have a purpose, it's going to keep going. So
Absolutely.
anyway, we've talked about Bluey and Sesame Street, and we talked a little bit about me.
So, before getting the role of Bowser, were you always like into Mario and video games?
You know, my back to my first wife again, she got me the original NES for Christmas, 1985, the
Oh,
year that it
wow.
came out. Yeah. And I actually had that Rob the robot thing.
Oh, really?
Nowadays, man, I'm all like, God, I wish I'd have hung on to all that stuff. Um, because if I had it all still in, you know, like the box or whatever, it'd be worth a whole lot more than it was then. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, I've been playing video games since the beginning of video games. I can remember thinking that Space Invaders was like, that was it. Nothing is going to be better than this ever. And you look at it now and it's just all like, duh, you know, it's just burp, 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 and pew, 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 pew. You know, it's like,
It's just so simple. Yeah.
oh yeah. But at the time, uh, we used to go to a bowling alley, and if you weren't bowling, the only other thing you could do was play pinball or shoot pool, you know? And all of a sudden there's this game and you could hear it. They had it turned up loud, and it was just that burp, 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 burp. And you were like, what? And you could hear the pew, 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 pew. And I went, what is going on? I was like, oh, that's it. We've reached the pinnacle of technology. And now I have a PS5 and, play Red Dead 2 and, it's Pacific Drive. But yeah, I've been a gamer since the beginning of time, but as I recall, the original NES was my first game system. So, been there, done
That's
that.
that's pretty cool.
I know. And for it to
At
wrap
on
around,
on one of the shows that I worked on, actually, we in our little lounge, we actually had an NES, and we had Duck Hunt and Super Mario Brothers, like
oh,
that combo.
that stupid dog. God, I hate
I
that
didn't play Duck Hunt. I only played Mario.
duck hunt. That dog. He laughs at you when you miss.
Yeah, kick him while we're down. Come on.
Hate that dog. I hate that dog. My current wife, who's my last one, trust me, uh, she for a while used that dog's laugh as the notification tone for my text. And God, I hate that dog. It's like it's kind of an electronic thing, but yeah, it was God, I hate that dog. Stupid dog.
So, as I mentioned in the intro, in addition to doing Bowser in his regular form, you also do all of the variants of Bowser: Dry Bowser, Meowser, Fake Bowser. Do you find that there's a difference between doing those characters versus the actual Bowser, or is it just the same because you're doing the same voice?
Yeah, strangely enough, I joke about it a lot,
Oh.
that with Dry Bowser, they anybody who's done theater before understands bizarre direction, right? You could be on stage and you're doing a scene and stuff, and they're like, okay, do it again, but better, you know, or do it again, but faster. You understand those, but I've literally said, do it again, but better. Well, with Dry Bowser, it was, all right, can you do what you regularly do, but drier?
Oh, wow.
And I was like, what?
I would have gone with make him sound more like he's dead.
Well, so what I did was I thought, okay, drier, that just means more air. So instead of going, I just opened up, and I know people can't see me doing this, but I just wanted to open my throat wider so that it sounded more breathy. So it came out more of a, and I just kept doing it until they were happy with it. I've also had do what you regularly do, but wetter. So okay. That's the nature of, acting in general. It's like try to get what they want, in the shortest amount of time. Because after a while it hurts. And as far as Meowser goes, um, I remember flipping the script. That was we were still using paper scripts back then. Nowadays, it's either on a monitor or an iPad or something. But paper script, I flipped the page over, and in quotation marks, it said Meowser. And I was all like, ha, that's hilarious. I was like, what does it mean? So they explained it. They said, all right, well, it's a power up. There's going to be Cat Mario, Cat Peach, Cat Bowser. And I went, oh, that's really cool. I go, what do you want him to sound like? And the director looks at me through the glass, clicks the talkback button, and goes, we don't know. And I was all like, ah, now I got to do some of that voice actor stuff. So I was like, immediately thought, well, I can't go, that's not going to work. Bowser's too big for that. So I started throwing on like a kind of a bobcat, medium cat, not as big as a cougar or puma or whatever you want to term him, but bobcat kind of a And people are like, oh, so then did you overdub, you know? And I'm like, no, I did it all at once. I threw the cat and the Bowser into the same vocal action. So it was kind of a, well, I did that for, it was somewhere between 2 and 2.5 hours. And I could taste blood.
Oh,
I shredded my throat. My vocal cords were okay. It was just the what they got vocal folds and my throat itself. I was just shredding. And if you look at the interwebs, uh, there's several people who I think there's YouTube videos and stuff where Kenny James lost his voice recording 3D World, and it's like, no, I didn't lose my voice. 3 days later, I was on stage at Bremerton Community Theater singing in a production of Evita. So, no, yes, my voice was hammered, but I did not lose my voice. I
hmm.
did not have laryngitis, any of that stuff. I was still able to get up there on stage and sing without a microphone over a nine-piece orchestra pit.
That's
So,
impressive. After you had basically
oh, I
destroyed your,
shredded.
yeah,
Yeah, I my throat was sore, but
I believe it.
it's always recovered really quickly, luckily for me. I
That's the
used to,
nice thing about that is that it never lasts.
yeah. I've had laryngitis 2 or 3 times, and it was always scary to me, especially when I was in bands and, I'd be like, we got to record, and all of a sudden my voice locks up and I can't sing. One time I had a singing problem, and ear, nose, throat doctor. He was an old school doctor with the mirror on his head, and literally there's a light behind your chair, and he's using a mirror to shine light down your throat, instead of using a scope. And he was like, no nodes, no cancer, no infection. He goes, your nose has been broken at least once. And I went, what? I've never been punched in the nose, but I've been hit with basketballs and stuff. But then I went, so what's the deal? And he goes, you have allergies. And I went, nah, I've never had allergy problems. He goes, well, you do now. And so what he explained to me was that uh, you've got nasal drainage that you're not even aware of, and it keeps your vocal cords inflamed. They're just right on the verge. And I would start singing and get a song and a half into rehearsal, and my voice would just start locking up. And he goes, what happens is they're already irritated. And he goes, when you start singing, they just swell. They just puff up, and then you can't sing. And I was all like, whoa. So at the time, guaifenesin was still prescription, but he gave me this big old handful of samples of guaifenesin. I don't remember how many milligrams, like 600 milligram guaifenesin. And he told me, he goes, guaifenesin is like solvent for phlegm. So I went, okay. He goes, take these. He goes, how long is it until your next performance? I said, about 11 days. And he goes, don't sing during that whole time. He goes, you can
Ooh,
talk. He goes, you can talk, but he goes, don't sing. And he goes, keep taking these. And I got on stage and was able to get through the entire show with no problem. And since then, I've been very aware of my so-called allergies. I mean, as I've gotten older, actually, they've become more pronounced. Especially, I live in North Texas. Uh, it's allergy central. So, anyway, did I answer your question?
seems like it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
I have a habit of digressing. So
oh, that's okay.
you have to keep me on the rails, man, because if you don't, nobody can.
Well, I would love to ask you actually, we were talking about Harvey Atkin doing
Mhm.
Bowser, and last year, Jack
Yeah.
Black, of
Yeah.
course, got a lot of recognition for not just doing the voice of Bowser, but for also singing as Bowser. What
Yeah.
did you see the Mario movie? What did you think of Jack Black doing Bowser?
I've only seen the trailers.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
I have not seen the movie. Um, and I get that question a lot, because I do a lot of Comic Cons and kind of things. And people are like, "Oh, what did you think of the movie?" And I haven't seen it. Really? Why not? And I go, I wasn't in it. So, you know, I maybe someday, I'll see it like on an airplane or something, you go, I've got 3 or 4 hour flight or something, and I'll put the movie on. But so far, I haven't seen it. I have seen the trailers, and I thought he sounded pretty good. I think he sounded a lot like I would have sounded if I was speaking as Bowser. Uh, I would like to have been a little bit further down here than he did, but he, I'm me. So, other than that, though. I understand fully, what they did. I mean, it's Hollywood, you use A-listers because that's going to put butts in seats, and it worked. I mean,
Hmm.
that movie had a relatively small budget, and it made like $1.5 billion in 2 months globally.
Hmm.
I mean, that's insane. I believe it is still the highest grossing animated feature in history so far.
Based on a video game, yes.
That's crazy. $1.5 billion on like a $300 million movie.
Yeah, that's like unheard of. And
It's
wow.
crazy. So yeah, to go back to your question, um, yeah, no, I think he sounded good. People are
So
like, "Oh, have you met him or did you coach him?" So I'm like, no, no,
Mhm.
he doesn't
So,
need coaching.
so,
He's
so,
Jack
so I
Black.
take it you've never heard the song Peaches, Peaches, Peaches,
Oh, sure,
Peaches.
sure. And people ask me all the time, "Hey, can you sing the Peaches song?" And I go, "No." And they're, "Oh, why not?" And I go, "Because it wasn't
It
me."
wasn't me.
I go, "I have no interest in singing the Peaches song. It was Jack. Go find Jack and have him sing it for you.
He probably would.
Probably, yeah.
Hmm.
But
So I'm sorry, go
no,
ahead.
no, go ahead. Next question.
So to wrap up the Mario talk, I'm sure you get this question a lot. What is your favorite Mario game that you've worked on?
Oh man, I've been getting that question a lot lately. So you're in good company. Uh, I always tend to go back to Galaxy.
Okay.
Super Mario Galaxy. It was one of my earlier games, very early.
Hmm.
Uh, we started when I first got hired to do this voice. My first game was Super Mario Strikers on the GameCube. That was the soccer game.
Hmm.
Wasn't a lot of Bowser in that, and so I was all like, "Well, this is easy," you know. And then my next session was Super Mario Galaxy and Mario Kart Wii. We did them both in the same session. And Galaxy, I mean, it was like they were ready to launch the Wii, so we had to start pumping stuff out. And that's why I think we did 2 games in one session. But uh, Galaxy was so Bowserific, as far as Bowser content goes. It Bowserific, I don't think I've used that term before. I'm going to use that again.
You
But
heard it here
yeah,
first. It was Bowserific.
it was Bowserific because every stage that you completed on that had Bowser at the end of it for the boss. Instead of other bosses, it was always Bowser, and it was just like bam, bam, Bowser after Bowser after Bowser. Um, so I still really dig that game. I just recently got a Wii U, um, because TVs nowadays don't have RCA inputs. So the Wii looks like doodle, even with an HDMI converter, which so far I've ordered two different ones from Amazon, but they probably came out of the same Chinese factory. They're probably exactly the same with a different label on it. And they don't work very good. It still looks terrible. So I had a vendor at a Comic-Con. I said, "What's my solution?" And he goes, "Just go get a used Wii U." He goes, "It has HDMI out." And it's a Wii emulator, So he goes, "It's fully backward compatible." And I was like, "Oh, cool." So I did that. And so I've been playing. My wife and I like to do Wii bowling and all that Wii
Oh,
sports.
that's fun.
Oh, it's a blast. Um, but now I need to dig out. I got to find them first, but I need to dig out my Galaxy disc and play Galaxy again because uh, back to your original question, I mean, Galaxy is still one of my fondest, you know, titles that I performed on.
So you also do voices for anime. Do you find
Sure.
it harder than voicing for Bowser because it's being dubbed? Because like I've watched anime before. I've seen Spirited Away. I've seen Howl's Moving Castle, Arrietty, and like I noticed that the soundtrack, like the English soundtrack, seems a little bit out of sync than where it was originally made.
Well, and here's the thing about, dubbing anime. First of all, I will say that I consider anime to be the Forrest Gump box of chocolates of voice acting because I never know what I'm gonna get. And that's the fun of it. I mean, they will call or not call me up. They send me an email and they're like, "Are you available on this day at this time, this show with this director?" And I've never heard of the show. And I'll be all like, "Yep." And you go in there and then the directors are like, "All right, here's this guy. This is your guy here on the monitor. And here's the situation. This just happened." And they do their director thing. And you actually listen to the Japanese version first for that line or lines. And that way you get the timing in your head. And I also try best I can to kind of emulate what the Japanese actor did, as far as attitude and, uh, loudness and just all that stuff.
Hmm. Okay.
And so it's really bizarre that when you watch it in Japanese, the flaps really don't match either.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
just don't. What's most important is the beginning and the end flaps. The internals are not so important unless there's, say, a comma or ellipsis, where there's a pause in the middle of the sentence or couple of sentences. So you pay attention to that because there will be a pause in the animation flaps. So that you need to nail down. But I will tell you, it is so much fun to do anime. It's a freaking hoot.
Mm. And it's so well written too, because like I had friends in high school who were so good at drawing anime, like just were pros at drawing anime. And then I watched Spirited Away for the first time, and I was like, wow, this is really, really well written. And then I went to HalCon, which is our fan convention here, and there were a couple of anime voice artists who were there, and I got to spend a little bit of time with them. And then
Dude,
I watched.
get a hold of them and tell them you want to see Bowser.
You know what? I probably could do that. I mean, some of the people that I've met at HalCon who work there know that I'm a podcaster, so.
Yeah, tell them to get a hold of celebworks.com. It's celebworks with an X. That's my appearance agent. So, and they also have Sam Kelly, who's Princess Peach and Toad,
Mhm.
and they have Laura Faye Smith.
Yep,
So,
Laura Faye Smith, who was a previous guest on this
yes,
podcast,
yes.
actually.
I saw that in your email. I was all like, sweet, Laura Faye. She's super cool.
I met Laura at a through GalaxyCon. She was doing a virtual meet and
Oh,
greet.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
I met Charles Martinet the same way.
Yep. Yep.
And I've met Kevin Clash, who played Elmo, Steve Whitmire, who played Kermit the Frog. I've met them all the same way.
Yep.
And with Laura, like I was leaving the next day, I was traveling for that week. And then while I was away, actually, I found a way to reach her. And I was like, I emailed her and I was like, hi, this is James Nobes. We met through GalaxyCon. We had a good chat. But of course, it was timed. Would you like to come on my podcast and we can have a chat that is not timed? And
Right.
when
Yeah.
she and I got this email back, it said Laura Smith. I was like, who's Laura Smith? I was like, wait a minute, Laura Faye Smith. And
Or
she
hey,
was so excited to hear from me. Like it was so good to talk to her again.
yeah, she's super sweet. Sam Kelly, she's also
I've
just
communicated with her a couple of times. She's a sweet person.
she's
She posted a
just
photo on Facebook of herself, you, and Charles.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
left a comment and I was like, three of the coolest in the biz. And I'm
They,
connected to I'm connected to all of them.
yeah, we all get along. Uh, my agent has been trying to get Katie to come out and do shows. She's Bowser Jr.
Oh.
Uh, but I don't know how successful that's been. I haven't seen her at any shows yet, so. But anyway, um, yeah, it's I don't know, man. I I want to go to Halifax.
Well, I'll be here when if you ever come here, just let me know. Well, that's all I've got here. Is there anything
Oh,
you want to
cool.
say to wrap up?
Closing thoughts. Do I have closing thoughts? I don't. Um, I will say that it doesn't matter where people are from. I mean, I'm Global Bowser, so um, I can't express how much I appreciate the fandom. And it doesn't matter if they speak English or Hindi or Japanese or German or witchy whatty. I'm Bowser. And for these people to love what I've done for the last 19 years, you can't imagine um, how grateful I am. I really appreciate it. I love all you guys. So there's my closing thought.
That's sweet. Well, Kenny, thank you very much for coming on Nostalgia Talk.
Yeah, James.
And to all you listeners out there, stay tuned for more. Peace out.
Yeah.